Okay, so I'm Alex Scantlebrady.
I'm Gabby Rico.
I'm Danny White.
And I'm Kayla Applenote.
All right, so most of the discussion is on the video, right?
Mm-hmm.
What'd you guys think of the video?
It was intense.
Very intense.
He was a very opinionated guy, or he is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was kind of hard to follow. I mean, at one point I would think I'd understand what his position was, but then he would move to another thing, so then I just getting confused on what he believed and where he stands on certain things.
Yeah, that's how I felt too. Like at first I was like really into it, and then it kept kind of shifting, and so I had to really like focus really hard.
Yeah.
I love the variety he pulled from, though. Like, he pulled from politicians of all sides and all views, and I really appreciate that, because so often they're like, if they're quoting Nancy Pelosi, is that her name? Pelosi? Thank you. If they're quoting her, they aren't typically going to quote McCain with just as much acceptance and appreciation for what they said. So I really appreciate that aspect. I was like, okay, I feel like he's more than left or right. He's just like common sense here, common sense there. This is the problem. And it was kind of refreshing, because so much of what we see right now is so intensely one side or the other. And it was really nice to see. It was very intense opinion, but I love that it felt a little more well-rounded.
Objective and
yeah,
thought out. Yeah.
Not just about allegiance to a
certain
he didn't
side,
have an allegiance to a particular political view. It was just, to him, what was common sense and makes sense. And I feel like if we all were like that, it'd be so much better.
Agreed. Okay, so I opened up the questions if we want to go over the ones that it's suggesting. So it says, Dr. George Will discusses many important topics. Choose one that you are personally interested in and understanding, then, oh, maybe that's not for, well, yeah, it is. Understanding, and then research the following. So why did the government get involved in this issue? Has it been effective? What have been the results based on George Will's speech? What could the government be doing right now to help this situation more effectively? So that's all just kind of one big one right there.
It's pretty much the same kind of like what we did for the other discussion, like the discussion board that we did. So I just got on there today and I saw that thing you posted about Ashton Kutcher.
Yeah.
Trafficking. That was really good. I read that, and I saw it on Facebook too, but
it was kind of interesting that it popped up this week. I was like, oh, this is like perfect for the class right now.
It was.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I did mine on low income families, because I mean the government's obviously involved a ton in that. There's so many different programs. You know, you have WIC, you have food stamps, you have housing assistance, you know, things like that. And I think and he mentioned this in his video too, Dr. Will. You know, I think it's good that they have those programs for those who need it, but he kind of acted like the downfall is, as we know, that some people get too dependent on it, you know. And so there's a fine line between people who really need the assistance and to help them get to where they need to be, and those who kind of just hang out on it, you know what I mean?
And play the system.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
And I think one of the biggest things, you know, because right now we kind of, me and my husband, we kind of fall under the low income family right now, because we're both, you know, working and going to school. And I think one big benefit of it is Medicaid for my son. You know, it's just insurance, and it's a really big blessing, because it's just peace of mind to know that he's taken care of. And we have other insurance too, but just to not have to worry about anything for him. Like if something happens, he's covered. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
No, I think that's a good point. I did my piece on people with disabilities. And it's kind of a huge umbrella, like I kind of said in my little spiel on the discussion board. But I work with that population every day, and I've actually handled their financials specifically before, and it's interesting to see how monitored it is and what the government does provide and what's like their Social Security requires that they spend so much on just food and different things like that. There's different requirements so that they can keep that funding. And I think it's really important because this population hasn't always been taken care of. And if you look at different places around the world, they're still not taken care of, and they don't have those same rights to liberty like we do. Oh my goodness, I can't remember if it's the Constitution, the rights to live and the pursuit of happiness, all that jazz, like that's not an option for them. They usually live in really bad environments, and they don't have a voice like they do here. So
Yeah, I took a special education class, and at the beginning of the semester, he showed us some videos of special needs children in different countries. And, you know, it's just, they kind of treat them like animals, honestly. In some cases, like they don't know what to do with them. So yeah, I feel like that was a really good topic, you know, the government involvement to kind of help regulate that. I mean, there are benefits. So
I actually saw it was going around Facebook, and the two countries. It was talking about two countries, and I may be able to pull it up super quick, but it said it's 100% Down syndrome free. Country follow their example by like 2030, but what they were doing is they were aborting 100% of what looked to be Down syndrome. Amazing the extremism and it's of Nazi Germany with the Aryan people, how they just wanted the perfect civilization. Therefore, anybody who was sickly or what they deemed to be not perfect was cast out or worse. Just a few days ago, but it was Finland was one of them. I'm sorry, but yeah, it was two countries that were really proud of the fact that they were. Are you guys still there?
yes.
Sorry.
it's interesting. Okay, so there's a few more questions for this. It says, Dr. Will cites a problem no one wants to talk about. With Bronfenbrenner's model, how is this issue impacting children and families, communities, and our nation? I'm trying to remember that part. I remember him saying that. Is that when he started talking about the education and No Child Left Behind? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much how the educational system is turning into canned curriculum, you know, and it's just, you know, teaching for the test and schools get funding if their children pass the test.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I mean, that definitely affects the child because they're not getting developmentally appropriate practices in their education fully, I don't think. And I don't know, what do you guys think about how do you think it affects the family unit? I mean, I don't really.
Well, I totally agreed with him. I felt like with what he was saying is it really starts in the home, and that's where it's kind of being affected is starting in the home and the way that the children are being brought up. And so I don't know. It's like this entangled cycle of all these different things. If you're lower income, then you're going to have less access to different resources, like even down to just the basics of food and different things like that. And so I understand why there's different resources in place like WIC and different things like that to help children specifically so that they can develop in a healthy way and hopefully be able to get a little bit ahead, level that playing field a little bit, which I think is something that's being done. I think even though it's really going to cost us and not in the way that we might want in the future, I think we're becoming smarter individuals, and hopefully we're able to keep up a good society. But I don't know. It seems a little imbalanced in places. Yeah, that's my thought there.
Yeah, programs like WIC too, they really try.
I'm glad they're putting.
Oh, go ahead.
Nope, go.
Oh, I was just going to say, programs like WIC, like you're talking about, they do provide they try to provide a lot of education for the parents too, you know, so that their children are, you know, so that they know what they're doing, kind of. Because I feel like, you know, all first-time parents, you're learning, but there's some people who honestly have no idea, you know what I mean? So I think it's really good that there are programs like that, you know, to provide education in different areas too.
It's true, and we see those lower scores and everything on those tests for the No Child Left Behind and all that are in more. They're in more poor areas, and it's hard for children to focus on school and even go to school if they're sick and they're malnourished and all that stuff. That's why I'm so grateful we are having more programs and more breakfasts are even being served at school for these kids.
With the standardized testing, I mean, obviously you guys had to do that in school too, right? Like through high school and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, like, I know like for certain students they offered like, we call them ISATs. I don't know if that's what you call them. Probably not. But anyway, some students who didn't pass them, like they were required to take a class specifically to learn about that subject. Like they had math ISATs or English ISATs and things like that. And so I guess it's good to have extra help, but I feel like because of standardized testing, it kind of took away from maybe some other classes. Like, I don't know. I feel like we've talked about this before, but it's good intentions for standardized testing, but at the same time, like, it's just kind of a mess, you know, and the nation is trying to get ahead, but it's still behind, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I feel like for the most part, standardized tests, it just seems like they're just doing it to get the score, to get certain levels or something. I don't even remember how they graded mine. But yeah, I was the same way. We had like, they were called CSAPs when I was in elementary school and I lived in Colorado. We had like the math and the English and all the science and stuff. But I just think that they weren't really applicable to the rest of, schooling. It was just basic things that they were just trying to test you on.
Yeah, and I feel like it was kind of weird. I wouldn't necessarily call it a threat, but I feel like because schools could get funding if the children passed, I feel like it was kind of like a bribe. Like, if you want your funding, like, you need to push this. But I don't know. I'm not super well educated on it, but just from what he talked about and from what I know, I mean, that seems how it is. But
yeah, he had mentioned that with I think it was No Child Left Behind, he was talking about schools like lowering the like level of curriculum or something in order to get those grades to get that funding, which is crazy.
I like the memes that are going around saying I would love some things I needed in life, like how to balance a checkbook and pay taxes. Like, those are things you need to know, especially taxes. Everyone has to pay taxes, and nobody has a clue on how to do it. When, like, nope. I still am like, Dad, what does this mean? What do I put for this again? And it's like we leave out. I love the idea of more home ec classes kind of being. People actually need to know to get through life, how to file for taxes, how to sew a button on, and cooking basics. Just like, I know that they want that to be taught at the home and stuff, but the whole point of education is to educate life skills, things we feel like we need to know in life, yet we forget some of the most basics. Because as awesome as geometry is, and as much as I do see its value, I don't know if we need as many years of some of these basics. Mm-hmm. and so few electives, so few other things. But those are the only things that are tested for. Those are the only things that will get the school funding through those tests.
Yeah, for sure, I agree.
So this is kind of a different subject, but when he said the government, instead of how did he say it? Instead of spending for the future, or giving to the future, we're taking, I don't know, never mind.
I think he said taking from the future, like instead of like borrowing for the future.
Yeah.
They were borrowing from the future.
Yeah. I mean, how did you guys feel initially when he said that? Like, what made you cross your mind? Like, I mean, do you feel it's like that right now? That instead of helping the future, we're taking from the future. Does that make sense? Did you guys catch that?
Yes.
Yeah, I was kind of confused about like what he had meant with that, but then he kind of talked about, I think it was Social Security, and how by, I don't remember, it was 2030 or something, there'll be 2 workers for every 1 retiree. And so that kind of was one thing that had made sense, that they were borrowing from the future, because that means, there's more and more work that has to be done and less that they get because they are taking care of all the people. I don't know. I may have understood that wrong, but
no, I think that's right. Sorry, I totally butched that. Like, I had it in my head and I went to say it and I was like, oh my goodness.
You're good.
I think the next little bit, like the next decade, is going to be interesting to kind of watch in that aspect, because we do have the baby boomers, and obviously we're the ones that are working right now. And so as we get older, it's going to be interesting to see that flip and see how that works. But it's also interesting to think about, like, most of us are going to live to a way older age just because of the time that we live in now. So, like, people make a big deal about how people are having kids in their 40s and even into their 50s now. Like, the human lifespan is changing in a weird way, in an advancing way. So I don't know if it'll be such a big deal to us that we're not retiring at, I don't even know what the retirement age is right now. 65, 60, something like that. Like, I don't know what's gonna be the norm in a few years. But I think we just have to, I mean, out of all of this, like, yes, what's happening now is important and we should pay attention to it just for precaution's sake. But I think that's why I'm personally so grateful that I have my Heavenly Father's plan and that I can have faith in that and that everything's going to work out. Like, just keep enduring and keep working and doing your best to be you and share that gospel and light. So anyway, that's all. Off my soapbox now.
I love that. I liked how he said how we've been doing these things we can't do. Like, we've been doing them and it's kind of worked for us, but we can't choose the consequences, and the consequences are going to come. And that's kind of where we're digging a hole for those that come after us, or where I think we might be the generation that ends in the hole. I'm not sure. But you know, like, I like that. And I liked how he brought up some of the simple factors that were taken into account, like how retirement age now I think it's 65, but before it was few people retired and you worked until you died, and now it's the expectation is I will get to retire and enjoy older life, and they're living for another 30, 40 years. And that was not the case, but that's now the norm. And we want that because that sounds nice. And he's like, one of the potential solutions is we change the retirement age and we make it older now that we're living so much longer. But of course no one wants that. They've understood, I make it to 65, I get a break, you know. But it also makes sense. We can't always have what we want, you know. Can we retire at a younger age and have longer of not working, and that work for our country, that be sustainable? And it's not, we're seeing, you know, but I don't blame people for not wanting to change that. Because personally, I'd rather be able to retire at 65 than have to wait until I'm 80 now, just because we're living that much longer on average, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Was there any more questions? There's a couple more, wasn't there?
Yeah, we beat our 20-minute mark. What question do we want to end on?
So the last question that's on here is, according to Dr. Will, one thing you can do for your country is reserve a spacious portion of your life for which your country is not responsible for. Reflect on what you've learned and discussed this week, and then respond to the following. Do you agree with Dr. Will? In what areas do you personally feel the government should be involved and should not be involved in addressing your chosen threat to children and families? Ooh, that's toughy, for at least in my thoughts.
When I initially sorry, my computer's echoing. But anyway, it reminded me of self-reliance. Like, we're taught a lot in the gospel that we need to be self-reliant. And, you know, I think it's important that we try our best to be as self-reliant as we can. And, you know, use programs when we need, but, you know, when we're able to support ourselves, you know, make sure that we do our part to be responsible and take care of ourselves. So
yeah, I guess for mine, if at all possible, it's so hard. I don't know, because people with disabilities, I mean, I guess it depends on what they are able to do. And just maybe more having programs in place that can help those who can and want to work have that opportunity, so that they can also provide some means for themselves. And there are some programs, but they could be a lot better. And I think businesses could be a lot better about hiring individuals with disabilities. But I'm still having a hard time trying to think of something. Because it's hard to say, have the family do it. But some of these people, these families that I come in contact with, they were doing it. They've been doing it most of their lives, and they just started burnt out from trying to help their family member. And so I see the government being involved as such a blessing to them. So I don't know. That's really hard. Anyway, that's...
Kayla, what was your chosen topic for like all of your papers? Was it technology?
Yeah, mine was technology. I'm trying to think. I can't remember what I had wrote another paper on that about the government and that, because I don't know what they can do without taking away people's agency to do what they want on their technology. So I don't know how they can step in without it being overstepping.
Yeah, I think with some topics, like, because mine was abortion, I mean, I feel like, the government can step in and it won't seem super over the top. Whereas with technology, I mean, if they were to say, hey, you can't have cell phones, I mean, that's,
Yeah.
like you said. So I feel like some topics, it's kind of like, it would be silly, but some topics,
But it's interesting, Kayla. Like, there are countries who have that, like, those technological stipulations, like in North Korea. Like, it's more, I guess it's not having them provided the technology, but it's more, what is it called? When not... They're trying to block different programs. What is that called? It starts with an S, I want to say. Huh? Censor. Yes. They're trying to censor different ideas and thoughts from their population and their communities. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. It's an interesting topic for sure.
Yeah.
It's kind of the hardest one, I think.
It is hard to find something. Because I know,
in China,
it should be in the family. They should have control over that. But I don't know.
Yeah. Because, like, Facebook's illegal in China, but how does the government do that? Oh, yeah.
I did not know that.
I taught, on my mission, I taught the son of, like, the second or third in command of the entire Communist Party of mainland China. And he was talking about how people thinking they're all, like, restricted because they can't have Facebook. He's like, but what you don't understand is there's a good reason for them not having Facebook and stuff. And it's kind of keeping them from breaking out in war, just because they have a lot of very, very young, very intense men, because the one child rule for forever.
Mm-hmm.
It's also why they don't do that. Like, that just changed, but they also were having so many abortions for girls because they wanted a son to carry on the family name and everything, that they have way more young men, and they're intense. And if they had, it would just kind of be fuel to their flame. So it is interesting, like, why governments do what they do and how ours would get involved. I don't know, except for maybe make it more difficult to reach pornography for children or something. I don't know how else they
I think that's what I had wrote for one of my other papers, just kind of talking about that, like, make it more difficult to find that stuff, to access it. because it's, I mean, so easy.
Making it harder for sexual predators to interact with children. You know, I don't know how they would do that, but that would be awesome.
Yeah, just making everything more safe on your technology, but that would be incredibly difficult.
What was your topic?
Cohabitation. Which like socially we support, but the government, there are advantages to marriage. There are tax benefits. There are benefits under the law. And that's why some people do just get married, is because it's better for them in some ways. There's other options though. I think of really old people, to a widow and a widower who are in their 80s and they're living off their they get a certain amount every month because they're a widow and a widower for Social Security and stuff. And that's how they're able to live. But they're in a relationship with each other. And if they were to get married, both of them would lose that. And they couldn't afford to live. So I met a very, very old cohabitating couple for that reason alone. So I guess that's a way like the government could maybe fix one thing that's encouraging cohabitation instead of marriage, but that's kind of a weirder example.
No, I know a lot of people who actually cohabitate because if they get married, then something would happen with, I don't know if it's going to be the same, but something would happen with their insurance benefits. And so then their children wouldn't be funded for different, like, autism help and, like, schooling and different things like that. And so they don't get married.
True.
Yeah.
If you bring single parenthood into it, and that totally changes the discussion. I wasn't even thinking, and that's an awesome angle to take. Because it's one thing when it's just a single man and a single woman. It's so different when you bring a child into it, and they need your
benefits.
They need the help to get by, and they have the help, they have the benefits, and then they would be losing it. After that would be so much harder than not having those benefits to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Is anyone else echoing?
Yes.
What causes that?
Sometimes different computers will react like that. Sometimes my sister's will do that when we'll hang out, and so she'll just like mute her microphone and it'll go away. But other times it doesn't do that, so I don't know. It's weird. And then mine will do it. So different computers will take turns. But does anyone want to try to summarize today? It's more variety than we normally have.
It was.
I can try to stop echoing. Do you want to trade on mute phones? Okay. All right. Is it echoing now? Okay. Okay, so we talked about different topics and the government's involvement. Some of them we talked about were low-income families and programs that the government offers, such as WIC, and food stamps and housing, HOPE, things like that. We also talked about people with disabilities and the government's involvement with that. We also talked about education and what Dr. Will talked about in the video, how, you know, it can be seen as good or bad. Some can see it as canned curriculum, and it's not really the best option for students. And unfortunately, you know, a lot of the schools feel they have to do that because they get funding if the students pass the test. We also talked about how that affects children and families and how it's really important that you know, in the home, children's basic needs are met so that, you know, in school they can do well also. And we just talked about, you know, some details about our other topics that we have chose to write about for our papers. And yeah.
I think that's awesome. Thank you. Does anyone want to put themselves in charge of starting and posting next week?
I can do it next week.
Thanks, Danny. I can send you the email with the list of everyone's emails, so it's all in one place for you if you want.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be great. Sorry, my baby was talking in the background.
Oh, no, you're good. Those are cute noises.
Oh, thanks.
All right. So I will talk to you guys next week.
Sounds good. See you guys later.
Thanks, guys.